Okay, so this right here might be the best rye whiskey I've ever had. I'm Jeff. This is Gwhisky. Stick around. Okay, so we're kicking off a new format today. This will be different from my other videos. It's going to be much more stream of consciousness. It's going to be way less structured. And that's because I want this kind of video, which is a malternative video, to feel different from my other ones. Now, if you're not familiar with the term malternative, it basically just means non-single malt. So it might be a non-single malt whiskey, or it might not be a whiskey at all. It might be a rum, might be a brandy, whatever. But this will be a new segment called Monthly Malternatives, where I talk about a malternative that I think is interesting and delicious and worth sharing with you guys. It may not necessarily be every month. It might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less. I just called it Monthly Malternative because it sounds good. Also, the lights are blue now. This new segment is brought to us by Fruit Bat, who are kind enough to send me the bottle that I'm about to discuss. This is the first time that I've ever worked with an outside brand. It's the first time I've ever done this kind of thing. So I do want to talk about that with you guys a little bit first. But before we do that, I am going to tell you guys what I've got in the glass because I don't want to keep you waiting. So what I'm drinking is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof Rye. So that's today's review. Anyway, going back, yes, I have accepted bottles from brands before. Last time was about 2 years ago. And at the time, I was transparent about it. I told you guys, listen, this was sent in by the company. And I also asked you guys how you felt about that. Honestly, most of you didn't really care. A lot of you said penny saved, penny earned, go for it. But there were some people that were concerned about objectivity. And I get that. And even though I feel like I was pretty objective in that review, and of course I told the brand I would be, they said, yeah, of course, be objective. It still did make me feel a certain way. And so since then, I have actually declined offers from brands to send me in bottles. No hate to channels that do accept them. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but just like I said, it made me feel a certain way. But I have found a workaround. I've decided I don't want to work with specific brands or specific whiskey distilleries, that kind of thing. They'll send me in bottles. I don't really have a choice in the matter, but I will work with retailers, especially ones that let me choose the bottles that I want to review. That way, I'm more likely to enjoy them, give them a positive review, and then everybody wins. Basically, I don't want to be beholden to any particular brand, but I do want to cut costs on the channel. Obviously, as you can imagine, this is a very expensive channel to maintain. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. Obviously, transparency is key for you guys trusting me, so that is the deal. And as usual, you can let me know what you think down below. I'm probably still going to keep doing it though. Super expensive channel. Anyway, a bit about Fruit Bat. They're a spirits retailer. They tend to specialize in collectible stuff. They have absolutely loads of collectible American whiskeys, but they do also have a little bit of everything. They do, of course, have plenty of scotch, but they also have plenty of, aside from the American stuff, they have plenty of brandies and rums. And I thought because Taiwan is such a single malt scotch haven, it'd be cool to start talking about malternative bottles because we don't have a lot of great malternative options here. Those guys do, so that just works for me. If you're worried, don't. The channel will not lose focus on scotch. That will always be the vast majority of my content, but I do want to dabble, and it's not always going to be American stuff. A lot of you guys always complain. You know, there's a million bourbon channels out there. They're always talking about the American stuff. When are you going to talk about stuff like rums and brandies? I want to do those too. Sometimes. Scotch first. Don't worry. I already said it. Scotch first. Anyway, finally, onto our review. As I said, this is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof Rye, which is not a mouthful. This is based off of a limited edition release from 2020 that was a big hit. I believe it was the same name. And I think last year or in 2023, either 2023 or 2024, they released it as a standard release. And so far, it has been very well reviewed. People seem to love it. Anyway, initially, I was not that interested in this one because I tend to, if we're talking American spirits, I tend to prefer bourbon to rye. But this has been described as the bourbon drinker's rye in the sense that it's not this grassy, dill, herbal, spicy bomb. Now, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you might know that at the end of each year, I put together a bunch of lists of some of my favorites from that year, and that always includes a malternative list. So my malternative for last year was the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof Bourbon, which is not a bourbon, it's a Tennessee whiskey because charcoal filtering. It's a bit of a bourbon though, isn't it? Anyway, in that video, in the comments, I got a bunch of people saying, yes, that is a great one, but you also need to try the rye. Some people even went so far as to say that the rye is better still. Unfortunately, this is not widely available in Taiwan, which again, Fruit Bat kind of works out for me. So I got this in, was curious to try it, and now we're going to talk about it. Before we do that though, quick info dump. As the name implies, this is a single barrel release, so they do change between releases. My particular bottle comes in at 57.25% ABV or 134.5 proof, so it's an absolute beast. Mash bill is always going to be 70% rye, 18% corn, and 12% malted barley. So yeah, let's jump into the tasting notes. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, so on the nose of this one, it does become pretty clear we are dealing with a rye whiskey. It's got that rye spiciness to it, but it's not as prickly or as sharp as a lot of other ryes are. We also get loads of caramel in here, or as the bourbon guys say, caramel. There's some nice maple notes in here. Now, there are different grades of maple syrup. This would definitely be the darkest one. We also get stuff like molasses. There's Tootsie Rolls, the world's worst Halloween candy. So this goes very dark and rich, but it does balance out the rye nicely. On the palate and finish, this is a very powerful whiskey. Now, it's not hot or prickly or youthful or undercooked in any way, but the ABV is ABVing in a good way. This is packed with flavor. There is a good amount of rye spice in here with that rich, dark, syrupy molasses counterbalance. Again, we get maple syrup and Tootsie Rolls. There's even some bitter coffee notes in here. These are extremely dark and rich flavors, and again, a lot of intensity. There's also plenty of oak in here. It does get a little bit drying. We have some herbal, grassy notes in here. Not too far in that direction, but they are there. We have a long finish on some gentle rye spices and even a hint of canned peaches. All right, so this stuff is excellent. It is famous for being a bourbon drinker's rye, and yeah, I think it is. As a non-rye guy who does not really like rye-dominated profiles, I do enjoy this one. There is a sweetness and there is a richness to this that is bourbon adjacent, but without trying to like hide or cover up the rye character. It is a rye whiskey and it tastes like one. The grassy elements, the herbal elements, the spicy elements, they're all in there, but they're not over the top. It's not too prickly. And one thing that's dialed back is the dill. This does not taste like a handful of dill. Now, in terms of intensity, there is a lot of it here. You might want to add water to this. Personally, I don't add any water, but that's only because I'm an absolute legend and I'm extremely manly and I can handle a lot of alcohol. But if you want to add water, it will round out some of the edges. Without water, is this going to be too hot? Like I said, for me, no, but I think maybe for a lot of people, if you're not in the world of like high ABV whiskeys, cask strength whiskeys, high proof bourbons, that kind of thing, if you're not in that world, then yeah, it's going to have some bite to it. But for every extra bit of ABV they've added, you have that extra bit of flavor and intensity. So for me, it works, but this is going to be too big for a lot of people. That's what she said. Now for the next question that I'm going to ask myself and then subsequently answer, is this better than the bourbon? Which is technically not a bourbon, but a Tennessee whiskey, but looks and presents and tastes just like a bourbon. That's a really tough question to answer. And that's because A, they're both absolutely fantastic, and B, they are single barrel expressions, meaning they're not going to be consistent. You're going to have variety between the batches. I've not had a lot of the bourbon. I think I've sampled from a total of 3 bottles so far, and this is the only time I've ever had the rye, so I'm hardly a specialist here. There are plenty of bourbon channels out there who have had multiple batches of both. Those are the guys to ask. But for me, based on what I've had, I would have the hierarchy of bourbon, then this rye, and then another bourbon. I'll see you in the comments.
Tennessee whiskey.
Yeah, I think I'd put the rye in the middle of a couple of the other Tennessee whiskeys I had. My favorite one was extremely rich and dense with a lot of like heavy base flavors. Absolutely gorgeous stuff. I'd put the rye just underneath that, and the other Tennessee whiskey was a little bit spicier, not quite as balanced as that first one. But again, you can expect that these are single barrel expressions, which is part of the fun. But what you can also expect from any of these releases is, as I said, quality. These are good. I think both are some of the best American whiskeys that you can get in that sub $100 price bracket. They are not skimping on quality and they are not skimping on intensity. And as I said, this rye in particular is a great one if you're coming from the world of bourbon, not totally sold on rye yet, which is me. Now for score, this is a new segment, as I said, so I do want to introduce a new scoring system just for Malternatives. The whiskey scores will stay the same, but a lot of people hate the whiskey scoring system. A lot of people are confused by it. So for this, we're just going to do 1 to 10. 1, of course, is garbage. 5 is fine. Anything above 5, I would say, is good to great. Obviously, 10 is the best we can get. So for our Jack here, as I said, this is probably the best rye whiskey I've ever had. The best American rye I've ever had for sure. So for score, I'm going to land on 8.5 for this one. I think it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. And I got to say, Jack Daniel's they're doing good work these days. Honestly, these guys could just sit back and sell an infinite number of old number 7 bottles and make all of the money. But no, they've actually been catering to enthusiasts over the last few years. And we're such a small corner of the market, but they're still doing it, which is great. And it's not just that they are catering to us, they're doing it well. They're giving us really good whiskeys, and I think that is lovely of them. So thank you, Jack Daniels. So final thoughts. This is great stuff. Definitely worth checking out. What I'll do is I'll link the Fruit Bat site down below where you can find this bottle. I do have a free shipping code. I think that only applies to the US. Not sure. If it doesn't work, you can let me know. But yeah, like I said, first time working with these guys. But I do appreciate them reaching out to me, and I especially appreciate them letting me choose the bottles that I'm going to talk about. Like I said, that makes me a lot more comfortable. So thank you to them. And of course, thank you to you guys for watching. And extra big thank you if you're a patron or a channel member. And if you want to become a patron or a channel member, I have PayPal and Patreon linked down below. Every little bit helps. I'll list the patrons here. They are wonderful people. And that is the end of today's video. So I'll catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.